Hey guys, today is day 5 in our Executive Focus Bootcamp. And today we're going to tackle calendar chunking. Now, when you layer this with what we learned in day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, this is going to really ignite some serious ability to have not just focused blocks of time or a focused day, but focused weeks, week after week, month after month, and of course, our focus being quarters here and starting your quarter off right, quarter after quarter. So be sure, if you haven't already watched the previous 4 days, go back and watch those. But this one really is a powerhouse when you pile it together with what we learned about creating those shutdown rituals and our daily clear goals. Because when you take those 2 steps and you put them inside calendar chunking, now you don't just have a day or a block of time where you're a powerhouse with clear focus and being able to drop into flow easily, but day after day rolls into this powerhouse of focus and success. So the reason that this is such a powerful tool is because most of us go throughout our day where we really just have a schedule that's like Swiss cheese. Maybe we're doing a block of email and then we're running the meetings and then we try to work in some deep work and then we try to sit down and work on a project with a partner and then we're checking emails again and we're answering that phone and then again, now we're trying to go over a budget or do some admin stuff. And so we are constantly task switching, constantly making our brains switch back and forth between different types of tasks and different types of focus, and quite frankly, different types of cognitive demand, right? A task of just going through emails and quickly answering back versus writing a proposal, different cognitive loads. And when we have our focus shattered that way all throughout the day, it really affects our ability to get into a deep workflow state. So when we start to learn how to do the chunking with our calendars, we're able to keep our focus within one area and easily flow from task to task because they're all intertwined or are at least not shifting our focus and the demand load quite as much. So I'm going to give you some steps in how to make this work most effectively for you. But just a quick little overview, this might look something like if you were going to calendar chunk, maybe the first couple hours of your morning, you were only in uninterrupted deep work. Your hardest, biggest, most important projects and creative work was done first thing in the morning, and you made sure you're uninterrupted, And then maybe you break for meetings, later on in the day, and you end the day with replying back to emails. And those are the blocks of time that you do only those activities. It can look something like that. I'll give you some suggestions and I'll walk you through how to set this up though. The first thing we're really wanting to focus on is being able to chunk together like activities or like obligations. And the reason that's important is because if it takes us on average about 23 minutes to get into a deep focus state, but we're only working on something for 45 minutes total, then obviously we barely got into it before we actually started any real work. And then we have to restart that process again. And it usually takes about 30 minutes or so to reshift into focus. So creating these blocks of time that have similar projects helps us keep that laser-like focus throughout a flow block or a section of time in our schedule. And this is where the magic happens. So to start off with this chunking, what we first need to do is just review your calendar. I want you to go through your calendar, go through your obligations, the to-dos, the activities, all of that you currently have, and then just start grouping them together. So right now you might have meetings on Monday, a couple on Tuesday afternoon, a couple on Thursday. Write those all down in a column that says meetings and when they are, who they're with, that kind of stuff. Okay. Then the next thing is maybe you have, like on my calendar, I call it deep work projects. You might have blocks of time that are set aside specifically for those hardest projects, but maybe there's a little bit on Tuesday, a little bit on Friday, or maybe you always are just like, oh, I've got to get to that. It's my number one priority, but you have all these little gnats that are always in the way, like checking your email, right? So go through and find all those things. Like maybe you're in a current project right now where we have this part of marketing and this part of a budget and this part of being able to coordinate teams. I would go through and list any of those similar things for the project. So maybe budget meetings are here, and maybe coordinating teams or building teams or team meetings with that project to check in are here. But put those all in a column based on what you're actually doing. Then also you're going to have some admin tasks. Put those all together. The things that you know every single week. Like for me, it might be writing a program or sending over, some follow-up like to-dos and PDFs and, just some things that they're going to be working on in the week following before we get back together. So those are the admin tasks. So go ahead and jot down on a weekly basis when you're looking at your calendar, what admin tasks do I have? What kind of time is that taking up? And then continue through your calendar, finding like or similar to-dos, activities, objectives that you have, obligations that you have every week, and write them in a column. So now you have kind of almost a spreadsheet of, these are all the things that I do for admin. These are all the things I'm doing for meetings. These are all the things I'm doing on this project. This is my marketing. All of that. Write it down and have it in listed columns. So now that you've got a visual of how you could start chunking these things together, how they could flow together differently than what you have in your week right now, because they're now paired up in like ways, I want you to do step number 2, which is just to think through what to-dos or priorities are not on your calendar that are personal and business ways. So make sure that you have that completed list. There might be some things that happen regularly that aren't on the calendar, and you just try to fit them in wherever you can. Write those down. So the reason I mention this is because in life and in business, there's always going to be those little time gremlins, right? Those things that come up that maybe you don't have a place for in your schedule, but they can't be ignored. They need to be taken care of. I actually have time in my calendar blocked out 2 different times during the week for urgent but not important things, meaning these are the little gremlins that pop up that, oh, I do need to take care of this. I need to book that hotel. I need to call back the doctor. I need to set this meeting up with so-and-so. I need to follow up with so-and-so. It needs to fall sometime in this week. It is urgent, but it's not important right now. And so when you make a list of those things that are not on your to-do and not on your calendar, but they are things that you regularly have to follow through with, you can make sure they find a place in this calendar chunking time as well, so that those gremlins don't come in and upset your apple carts. So super important, make sure you have a completed inventory of everything from what's already on your schedule. You've put that into those coordinated blocks of chunking times that could go together. And then all the things that aren't on your calendar but pop up anyways that you know you have to make time for, or they'll upset the apple cart here. Make sure you've got those listed. That's part 2. And then once you finish those extra little gremlins, I want you to go through that list and start to prioritize it. Like, these are the most important things that must be done. These are actually things that we could either move completely off the list and no longer have to do, or we could start to downsize. Like, maybe you have a weekly meeting that doesn't actually need to be a weekly meeting where you're face-to-face. Everybody's having to travel, or everybody's having to, come to the boardroom, whatever that is. Maybe it could switch to a Zoom meeting. So it's saving you time, saving them time. So how could you downsize it? Maybe you have a Zoom meeting that doesn't need to be a Zoom meeting. It could just be a weekly, at the end of the week, they just had an accounting sent over to you of what had been accomplished, where they're at, and what their objectives were for the next week. And you don't actually have to even have a Zoom meeting. Maybe something that is a one-on-one, it could start to become a department meeting or a team meeting where the head is leading that group, but you're all getting together. So it's not individual times where you're talking about stuff and then having to talk back and forth through email about what the other person was doing or saying or committed to. And you could take one-on-ones and compress them into a 30-minute team or department meeting. So looking at this list that you've now compiled, these 2 things in step 1 and 2, what could you downsize? What makes sense to actually eradicate from the schedule or completely change the way that you're able to, the way that you're doing it so that it's more efficient? So once you've got that completed, you've completed step number 2. So step number 3 is now the easy part. You've done all the groundwork. Now we just need to find the times and spaces in your schedule that you're going to commit to following through with these. Now, keep in mind, we're chunking things though, right? So this means you might designate that I am only doing meetings, whether it's a Zoom meeting or a face-to-face meeting or even a phone meeting, on Thursdays. Thursdays will be my meeting day. All my energy is going to be focused on those connections, and that's it. You have to be on my schedule on Thursday or we're not talking. You might decide that the first 2 to 3 hours of every day is uninterrupted block time for your deepest, most important projects to be moving the needle on. You may decide that you only answer emails 15 minutes in the morning after that deep work where you can just make sure nothing's on fire, and then 35 to 40 minutes as you close down your day. And no other email will be checked or answered by you. Maybe your assistant is, maybe she's piling or he's piling stuff into these are the things that you need to do at close of day today. This is the important things, but you're not answering back and checking emails except for those blocks of time that you have designated as the chunk for emailing. So looking at those pillars that you created, those columns you created of like type activities and obligations, now start to ask yourself, what day would be best for me to do these types of things? I know Mondays, I'm probably doing more making sure everything's flowing and moving. And so any kinds of projects or any kinds of work that is moving things forward and checking in and making sure things are aligned is going to happen on a Monday. I do Thursdays is when I actually plan out all my upcoming marketing, and that there's a huge chunk of my time that is dedicated to that. And that works best for me. But during that chunk of time, I'm not taking meetings. I'm not meeting with clients. I'm not doing anything that's outside of creating the content or planning out the content and calendaring it. So what you need to do is ask yourself, when do I work best? How could I design this out? And maybe it's like the first half of my days are for only these things and the last half of my days are only for these things 5 days a week, because I know late afternoon, my energy is lagging, or for some people, that's when their creative juices really start to kick in, as around 3 o'clock. And so you're just going to ask yourself, when could I do these types of activities best for me? And then start to lay out those chunks of time. The other part of this is it's super important for you to be very clear with anybody else involved in this. So if you have people who are subordinate to you and they would normally be interrupting you those first 2 hours of the morning, you need to be very clearly communicating, hey, I am not available these times. I will get back to you at X time when I do my check-in. There might be a superior to you who you've got to let know, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm trying to do. I want to be the most efficient with my time. And so from now on, I'm going to do all the marketing and handle all of that on Thursdays from this time to this time. And so I will always defer back to that, because this is going to help me stay in my most creative time for this block of work. So make sure you're communicating that well in your personal life as well. So the people who could possibly affect this, they're kind of gremlins too, right? Not just time gremlins of activities, but people gremlins, that this is very well communicated, and what you expect and your expectations for these blocks of time is communicated well. So now we're on the last step, and this one is so often overlooked. You guys, it is so important. If you don't make sure you include this step in your calendar chunking, you will run yourself into a wall. You will definitely create overwhelm and overload in your brain. So the whole reason we want to do this calendar chunking is because we want to give our brain the best opportunity to be able to get into a deep state of work, and even a state of flow if possible for us, if you've learned how to do flow. And so that's why we're chunking this stuff, right? So we want to be able to get in and just like laser sharp focus, get project after project done. And when we get into that state, we often forget how demanding this is on our brain. It literally, that cognitive focus, that real deep work takes so much energy and really drains our brain. We must plan and put inside those chunks of time that we have in our calendar chunking, time for recovery and time to be able to kind of reset our brain. And so if you have, say, a 3.5 hour chunk of time that you plan on doing some creative or innovative work, break that up by 90 minutes to 120 minutes. Don't get any longer without also planning a 15 to 20 minute break of some restorative recovery work. And this doesn't have to be anything big. It can be as easy as I just made sure that I walked away from the desk. I went outside, I sat on, in the chair, and I just breathed in the air, and I listened to the surrounding sounds, and I let my brain just wander. Didn't think about anything in particular, just let it wander. It can mean going on a quick walk. Now, both of those things, I would not want you to take your phone. We do not want any distractions to come in during this restorative time. If I start checking my email, if I start having conversations with coworkers or with business partners or with clients, I'm now not in a restorative state. I'm just doing a different task. All I'm doing is task shifting now, which is what we're trying to get away from when we're doing this calendar chunking. So be sure that anything you're doing for restoration is not allowing any distractions in. So go for a walk without your phone. Just let your brain run. Maybe do some meditation. I like to do SMR. If you know what that is, it's self-myofascial release. So I'll have my foam roller and just roll out whatever part of my body feels tight from sitting at my desk in that hour and a half block of time. I also love to just go out barefoot and walk in the grass and lay in the grass. I have a hammock set up, and I'll go lay in the hammock and just feel the sun. It can be really basic things, but we just need your brain to rest and let it run free. And the rule of thumb is you don't want to go longer than 90 minutes to 2 hours before you do this. Some people will say a good 45 to 50 minute break is a good time to do that. But if you think about how long it takes you to get redirected, that really leaves a short window. So you might, if that feels like that's where you need to start, that's great, but work up to where you're getting that 90 minutes to 2 hours, take the break, and then go back to your next chunk of time in your calendar. And if you're going to completely task switch, let's say you went from your innovative work to I'm going to go to a meeting, you might want even a little bit more than that. Take 30 minutes or so to where you can really not just get that refreshment, but kind of now switch your mental energy to the new direction that you're going to be doing in this new task. So that's it. That's our 4 steps to calendar chunking. Obviously, you can get really minute with this. There's a lot of tools. You could throw some of this stuff into ChatGPT and ask, here's my stuff. How would you do it? There's also a really great tool called Motion that I have found that works really well. You guys have probably heard of it. But the whole concept is it's chunking your time in your calendar to make it most efficient. So if you want to use one of those tools or just keep it really simple with these 4 steps, either way, that calendar chunking is going to allow your brain to flow more effortlessly from piece of work to piece of work because you've chunked them together in like type activities. So I guess my question to you is, have you ever done this before? Or what is your biggest struggle when it comes to calendaring? Is it those time gremlins that pop up that maybe don't have a space or a time to be on the calendar, but always seem to pop in and demand your attention? Is it maybe that you don't communicate well to others what the expectation for the time that you're working is, and so you are always interrupted just because of lack of communication? Or is it that you've always been more of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of person, and the chaos that creates is holding you back, and you're looking for a practical way to do this that just isn't, blocks of time, but has a method and a reason behind it so that you can really get that deep work in? So go ahead and let me know what your toughest situation has been that you want to overcome, or even what you're using that works best for you. If you've used ChatGPT or Motion or any of those tools out there, let everybody know so that they can jump on and start using those too, because we're here to help each other. And don't forget, you guys, down in the show notes, there is a link to a really powerful workshop that I have where I dive deep into clinical ways to help you maintain really crystal clear laser focus throughout your day, your week, your month, your quarter. It's full of helpful tools, cognitive behavioral therapy tips, Lots of really great resources. So if you want to make sure this quarter is where you are taking off and no longer holding yourself back, check that out, that free resource below as well in the show notes. And I look forward to hearing what you found that helps and what you're hoping to no longer struggle with. Thanks, guys.